All right, welcome everybody. Thanks for watching this video. I appreciate that. We are talking today about Peru, and what's really interesting, the way this came about is that I'm leading a Galapagos group in September of 2027, and it occurred to me that we're down in that area and that a lot of people have Machu Picchu on their bucket list as well. So I thought, why don't we put together an extension for the Galapagos trip for people that may want to jump on and stay in the area and also cross this off of their list. And then as I'm working on this and I'm thinking about this, I'm like, this is a trip by itself. So I want to be able to offer it to anybody that might be looking to go to Machu Picchu and have that experience, Peru experience ahead of time. So I've invited Sean from Kensington Tours onto the call today. And I thought what we do is just kind of go through the itinerary that we've put together. And then if you care to join us, you can always reach out to me. My phone number and email address are pretty easy to find, but if you need those, I can share those toward the end. But yeah, so I thought let's just go dive into the trip that we've put together, and it's really exciting. Uh, so Sean, I know you're going to share your screen, and maybe you want to introduce yourself, and we can go
Sure.
from there.
Yeah. Well, thanks for the introduction. I'm Sean. I'm a destination lead with Kensington Tours. So I specialize specifically in Latin America. So anything from Mexico down to Patagonia, and of course Peru falls squarely into that. Um, Galapagos in Peru, Ecuador in Peru, neighboring countries, lots of shared history as well. And it makes a really nice combination that offers quite a bit of variety. So where you have a lot of the nature, culture, cuisine, archaeology on the Peruvian side of things, the Galapagos offers that sort of beach, wildlife, and other components as well, flora, fauna, and that sort of thing, let alone the mainland of Ecuador. So it's a really well-rounded combination. Neighboring countries, they tend to do very well together, and the logistics are quite smooth to connect the two. And so we spoke quite a bit, you and I, Ryan, about what you were looking for and lots of detail around how you want to formulate the trip. So we've come up with kind of a cursory first draft that we can go through, that we can present. And I'll talk you a little bit through why I chose to do things in the order that I did, some of the excursions and some of the elements that we're highlighting here.
Yeah, and the other thing I want to mention is that, if you're thinking about Galapagos and you're thinking about this type of trip, sometimes people in your family might be like, I don't really want to do the snorkeling and the wildlife and that kind of thing. I want to do more of a cultural history type of thing. Well, now you just got the option to do both together. So you can get the
There
you
you
can get
go.
both in one vacation.
So, so did you want me, Ryan, to kind of to put the itinerary up on my screen and kind of walk through
Yeah,
it step by step? Okay, well, let's
yeah,
do
let's
that.
do it.
Let's see if it shares. You can let me know when you're seeing um, my screen.
Got it.
Perfect. Okay. And if you have any issues, just let me know. But so yeah, I threw a couple nice header photos here to hopefully get you guys all excited about Peru. And as we can see, there's lots of variety, lots of colors ranging from the urban in Cusco in the south or in the bottom right hand to kind of the grandeur and nature of Machu Picchu on the far left side. Um, and then, of course, we have a couple other, a little bit of a nod to sort of the textile traditions, and then a little peek into the Larco Museum in Lima. So I tried to cover all the destinations there, and we'll kind of run through these. First off, dates. So we started with what Ryan was looking to explore was September, and that falls kind of squarely into a nice window for visiting these destinations of Peru. Not all destinations, but these destinations in particular. And we'll typically recommend May to October, which is actually Peruvian winter as the optimal season to make this trip. Why in the winter? Because in January and February and March, we start to see a lot of rainfall. And so for those kind of more nature oriented parts of the trip, be it Sacred Valley, Machu Picchu, the weather can have an effect. So this is a nice kind of position to travel. And it also has the added advantage of being slightly after Labor Day and the start of the school year. So we start to see the crowds kind of thin out a little bit that we would have seen kind of in the peak summer, North American summer months at least. So with this first stop is going to always be almost always from North America into Lima. Lots of cities in North America offer direct air to Lima, some connecting flights, but in general, not as a rule, but in general, flights will arrive at night. And so that's why in this first day, you'll see that there's not really much content. We're assuming an arrival sometime around 9, 10 p.m., which is quite typical. We want to budget at this time of day about 45 minutes into Lima proper. They've just redone the terminal. It's quite nice and modern now. There were at first a couple of teething problems, but getting into Lima at this time of night's actually kind of convenient because at other times of the day, traffic can be an issue like Lima or in Lima, like many other Latin American capitals. So the next day is just kind of a deep dive into Lima to see the city itself and to explore the Larco Museum. Lima was the colonial capital, right? So we're going to see two capitals in this itinerary, and we'll talk about the second one later. This was what the conquistadors, Cortez and co. Established as their capital on the coast. So we're starting at sea level. We're getting a lot of that kind of Spanish heritage. Um, Intermingled with a lot of Chinese and Japanese immigration, which figures prominently in kind of the Lima or Limeño picture and culture and cuisine, especially, which hopefully we get to include at some point. So exploring some of those major sites and some of those, some of the primary neighborhoods and historical pieces of Lima itself. I've included the Larco Museum, arguably, in my estimation, the best pre-Columbian museum on the continent, as part of that visit to sort of set the stage for everything that is to come, right? And I think when it comes to a broader piece on Cusco, on Machu Picchu, on the Sacred Valleys, to some extent, you get out of it what you put into it. Not that they're not rewarding in and of themselves, not that the landscapes are not spectacular, but the more you investigate the history of how the Inca lived, why things were built the way they were built, and some of those historical pieces, you'll find the second portion, or kind of the bulk of the itinerary, to be more intriguing. And maybe I'll give you some reading recommendations after you see I got my big library behind me, but we'll see how we go. Um, and so, yeah, just a visit to the Larco Museum. The Larco Museum used to offer a curated experience, and that's been discontinued, unfortunately, after this year. So we'll just make sure that we have an expert guide on hand. All this touring is private with Ryan and your group to kind of illustrate and enhance that experience because not all the labeling in the Larco Museum is immediately obvious, but it is very rewarding if you know exactly what you're looking at. And just a final piece on Lima before I stop for a second. I've selected to stay in the Miraflores neighborhood. So the two most popular neighborhoods for stay are either Miraflores and Barranco. Miraflores is a little bit more modern, lots of good shopping, good restaurants, very walkable right along the coastline. Barranco has a little bit more of that artsy, bohemian, still good restaurant and bar scene, both very trendy. I just found Miraflores to be a tad more walkable and approachable, and definitely safe. And so that's why I've highlighted that neighborhood so that folks have time also to explore independently. We may have the situation on day one where some arrive earlier, etc. I'm in the Suma Hotel, a very good hotel, a good buzz, very clean cut, modern rooms. Actually have an image of.
Pictures that they
Okay,
probably they
there
are.
you go. We have here's a room at the Suma. This is a two-bed room, but of course this we can do king as well. So it just gives you a sense of the aesthetic, a really nice rooftop bar, and kind of a vibrant feel to the hotel to get the trip underway. So it's a little snapshot of the Lima portion. Did you want to add anything there? Do you have any questions on that, Ryan?
No, I think I just want to emphasize the point you made about the going to the Larco Museum and getting that sense of what we'll be seeing, in the following days. I think that's a really nice setup to kind of bring your whole package together, right? Like you're investing the time to go see Machu Picchu and see all that, but to have that history component, I think is a really rewarding thing to start. Also, we mentioned, you fly into Lima. Um, when you arrive there, we will have meet and greet service, and you'll have that transfer in as well. So you won't basically when you land, you're not going to have to worry too much about what happens next. It'll
And
all
maybe we should have clarified from the beginning that all the services, unless otherwise indicated, and I'll indicate which ones those but are just your group, right? There's no tour bus with couples from Europe and other North Americans and Canadians like myself, God forbid, getting on the bus. It's all just your group, and kind of a group of people ideally who have, some element, and maybe that's just you, Ryan, but something in common. And so that kind of enhances the
yeah,
experience as well.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so shall we head over into central Peru?
Yeah.
Okay, so we heading over into the Sacred Valley. So the altitude becomes a factor in central Peru, and so we design things in response to that. And that's why we'll see this afternoon a climatization piece here. Running sequentially from east to west, Cusco. 2 hours west of that is the Sacred Valley, and 2 hours west of that again is Machu Picchu, right? And I've intentionally gone downhill here because Cusco is our highest point. So Cusco's at about 11,000 feet, meaningful altitude. Andean lifestyles. And then we head down into the Sacred Valley. We're looking at around 8,900 feet above sea level. And then Machu Picchu, though often with the images we assume it's the highest point, is actually far and away the lowest point, 7,900 give or take. And the town itself, which we can either call Machu Picchu Pueblo or Aguas Calientes, is even lower than that. And you're almost at Machu Picchu entering into like a bit of a subtropical feel, right? So the weather will be a little bit warmer. Altitude won't play as much of a role as it will in Cusco. So what we try to do is get you to the Sacred Valley. A, we cover half of that ground to Machu Picchu right away, and B, we drop 2,500 feet in altitude to help you acclimate at a slightly lower altitude. And then, of course, we try to follow best practices to the extent that we can. Lots of water, not a lot of alcohol, lots of sleep, light physical activity on the first day. And so what we've done, and I should state also that Cusco is the airport that services this entire region. So there's no way to fly to Machu Picchu or fly to the Sacred Valley. So we have our transfer to Lima Airport. Lima to Cusco, 18-hour drive, 90-minute flight. So let's take the flight in that case.
Yeah.
And then we get picked up, like in Lima, meet and greet at the airport, and head out to the Sacred Valley. This is a 2-hour drive, very scenic. But just to break it up, since you're in a new kind of locale, and since we're going to give you a lot of that afternoon at leisure, I break it up with a visit to a textile operation. We can learn a little bit about the traditional textiles, weaving. There's a llama and alpaca farm, and you can interact with the animals if you want. Kind of tying with our Galapagos theme very loosely there. But just to have a little bit of experience of that very famous and acclaimed portion of, let's say, of Peruvian culture and heritage. Um, Typically, we'll try to align this flight to arrive in Cusco if we're considering we want to be at the airport 2 hours in advance. Out of Lima, we might want to be budgeting nearly an hour to get to the airport. So I don't want to make the morning too troublesome to get you up at like 6 a.m. So I'll probably aim for a midday flight from Lima, early afternoon arrival into Cusco. Then you're at your hotel at a nice time for check-in, nice and relaxed with the stop along the way, and then have that afternoon to enjoy. The hotel itself has lovely grounds. You're surrounded by mountains and rivers on all sides. I have an image of the room category here, right?
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah, this hotel has at the higher end room categories, they did a nice refurbishment. And so I've included that. And like I said, the grounds are quite nice and a nice place just to relax and unwind. Um, the next
Quick
day I
question.
did want to go to Chinchera. Did you want to jump in, Ron?
Yeah, just a quick question with the, because like it says on our itinerary here, separate purchase
Yeah,
from, for the flight from Lima to Cusco.
yeah,
Um, but it sounds like it's separate purchase, but it'll be organized by
yeah.
us, right?
I only left it out because two reasons. One, different travelers might prefer different cabin classes, and we can
Yeah.
adapt to that. And secondly, the air hasn't been published yet for the dates that we were discussing.
Right.
And so if I was going to include it, I'd want to be like conservative. We never know with our oil and all this these days how things will evolve. So I'd rather just keep things separate. And then once the time comes, you can estimate just to give a sense what this might look like. Lima to Cusco round trip, 375 US dollars per person, thereabouts. Okay, so it's
Wow.
not a meaningful addition to the trip. The air service with LATAM, which is the airline that offers this route, is actually quite comfortable. I love traveling with LATAM when I'm in Latin America. The service is great. The planes are clean and comfortable.
We're
Um,
a Delta partner as well. So if you're
yeah,
a Delta
good point.
loyalist, yep.
And so we'll have, and then premium economy is actually decently approachable as well. So you have economy, premium economy, and sometimes the difference is not significant between the two. So if premium economy is just front of the plane, blocked off middle seat, and additional baggage allowance. But in economy, the baggage allowance is standard, as you would with any other United or Delta international flight.
Yeah.
Um, Chinchero market, probably the biggest market in this area is the Pisac market. The Pisac market is very popular. It's very touristic. I would consider it less authentic, if you can permit an overused word in the tourism industry.
Sure.
And so I prefer to send travelers to Chinchero Market, which is this idyllic little mountain town, much harder to access, but as a result, much more authentic. Lots of good textiles, artisanship, and that sort of thing, along with the kind of mountain experience and the nature views, as opposed to Pisac, which I don't want to say is like trinkety, but in some ways it can be. Morass and Moray, Morass is kind of like these salt ponds, so it has importance in terms of agriculture. Moray is a amphitheatrical archaeological site, quite photogenic as well, and just kind of another archaeology piece to build into this. Bear in mind, the Sacred Valley is a region, right? So we're staying at a hotel in and around Urubamba, but these are drives out to different places. Not meaningful drives, but maybe half an hour this way, half an hour that way to get from site to site because we're exploring the valley as a region. And that's why we have lunch at Tanupa. This is not a highlight lunch. The idea is here is that we can kind of stop in. It's sort of a traditional buffet style lunch, and it gives us time to really focus on the content. If we kind of settle in for too long of a sit down lunch, we actually lose a lot of the day. And since we only really have this one full day in the Sacred Valley, that's why I've designed things this way.
Yeah, that makes sense. And noted the entrance fees are included into
Exactly, yeah.
this
There's a
place.
lot of back end fees, and we'll handle all of those, but it could be these fees that cover the archaeological sites in the Sacred Valley in Cusco, Machu Picchu permits, those sorts of things. And that, I guess, can segue to Machu Picchu if you feel ready to
Mhm.
go there.
Which is behind me. If
Oh, there it is.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not sure if my screen is showing when we're sharing, but if you saw me earlier before we started sharing screen, Machu Picchu was behind me.
It's arguably the most photogenic place in the world, but there's certainly a lot more to it than that.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll be able to illustrate that. And I think, like I mentioned, it's one of those places that um, like the Larco Museum we talked about before, you can go in, have nice views of Machu Picchu, say, wow, this is cool. But if you know what you're looking at and you understand even down to like the geometry of things, why this was placed like this, what this is supposed to represent, why these buildings are aligned in this way, it adds to the whole kind of, and if you have some color on like the history of its creation, which is still sort of unknown, there's different theories as to what Machu Picchu was. And then Hiram Bingham, of course, the fellow who found it, I guess coming on 200 years ago or thereabouts. So anyhow, having the guided portion is super helpful. So here are some of those shared elements, but there's no way around them. And it's quite standard for any traveler. So I'll highlight those as we go. The train only allows 5 kilograms, or 11 pounds of baggage. So what we do in general is we arrange for the rest of your baggage to be forwarded on to Cusco, where you'll arrive on Thursday night, right? So you just bring an overnight bag up to Machu Picchu. It's a little bit of like a Russian doll effect where you have your overnight bag that goes right to the hotel, and maybe you have a smaller bag inside that to actually go up to the Citadel where you want to have your, your phone and your passport maybe, or your cell phone or your wallet and those sorts of valuables. So what we're going to do is we're going to head from the hotel to Ollantaytambo where the train station is. It's about a 30-minute drive, give or take. Um, and then that's that 2 hour train ride. You might remember we said Cusco, Sacred Valley, 2 hours. Sacred Valley, Machu Picchu, 2 hours, right? So we have a 2 hour train ride with the Vista Dome train. The Vista Dome is a glass enclosed train, very luxurious, comfortable, offers great views of the Sacred Valley and area as you descend towards Aguascalientes. And then once you arrive at Machu Picchu, there's a bus, and it's just kind of this continuous bus service that heads up. I characterize it as 30 minutes because I want to factor in like wait time, which is super minimal because they just kind of go continuously. It's probably closer to 20 minutes, the bus up to Machu Picchu. And that's really the only way to get up unless you've done like the one of the major trail hikes into Machu Picchu. So those are the shared pieces. That's where it ends. Train and bus. We don't own the train, we don't own the bus. So,
Yep.
That's what it has to be. But like I said, these are very standard. And what we'll try to do is highlight Machu Picchu in two visits. Um, and if we're far enough, they've kind of made a sort of complex circuit system with circuit one, two, and three, and then each of those has either three or four sub-circuits. And since time is our friend here, if we can get ahead of things, if we can get the kind of things sorted early enough and get the passport information all collected, we can get circuit two tickets, which are panoramic tickets, which kind of allow you to go everywhere. And that's what we'd want to do, right? After, if the circuit two tickets, which sell out a number of months in advance, what we'll do is we'll buy like a circuit one and three, which together make a circuit two, if that
Okay.
makes sense. And so that's why we have two visits. A second reason for two visits, sometimes cloud cover sets in, sometimes you have bad weather, and if it's such a bucket list item that we don't want to risk missing out on it or like not having had the best conditions to see Machu Picchu. Now, on the second day, if, for example, one finds themselves very tired and they decide not to go up, which I wouldn't recommend, but at least it's best to have the ticket because if you want to get the ticket and you're on site, it's virtually impossible. There is a way to do it, which is sort of queue up from overnight with the backpackers, and
Oh,
that's
yeah.
really a lottery. So it's always advisable to have two tickets, ideally two comprehensive circuit two tickets, and that's what we'll try to offer. There is options, and we can talk about this later as this goes along, that there are some mountain hikes in and around Machu Picchu that can be added, but that requires a level of physical fitness varying from Huchi Picchu, which is the least challenging, about 90 minutes up and 90-minute round trip up and down, to Machu Picchu Mountain and Huayna Picchu, which are both serious undertakings, some hands and feet stuff. So, anyways, but I digress.
Yeah.
So these 2 days will really be focused on the citadel itself, and exploring everything in depth that there is to see at Machu Picchu, that you can come away feeling like I really grasped that. I really understood that. I got to see it in the morning. I saw it in the late afternoon. And I feel like I understand
So
what's
can
so
I ask
special.
I just want to clarify here. So on day 5, we do that whole train thing in the morning. Then
Yep.
we get there and we have 4 hours. You
Yes.
take the bus up, you have a 4-hour tour on
Yep.
Machu Picchu and sort of leads you into late afternoon.
Mhm.
Then you come back down and you go to the hotel that you've got selected there. And
Mhm.
then on the next day, we do essentially the morning portion is
Mhm.
the Machu Picchu, and then we take the train back in the
Exactly. Yeah. So this will be like a decently early start. We'll try to get on an earlier train so we get there in time for lunch. A Machu Picchu permit is valid for 4 hours. If you do one of the aforementioned mountain hikes, you can do like a plus 3 hours. But so it's a 4 hour permit. We can visit the afternoon on this day, heading into dinner, which is included at the hotel. I'll show you the room that I selected. Um,
Oh,
it's
that's it.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's at Casa del Sol in Machu Picchu Pueblo or Aguascalientes. You'll see it called both. And then the next morning we get up there early. One of the benefits also of the morning visit is there's a lot of sort of day trip service from Cusco or the Sacred Valley. Some folks will try to do kind of you said in English, the round trip in a day.
Mm.
So they'll go up and back. And so they tend to show up in the afternoon, right? So the afternoon tends to be a little bit more, the hikers arrive, et cetera. So having that morning visit, you'll find it's a little bit thinner, morning air, nice and blue and clear. And so this visit often ends up having a little bit better conditions as well for kind of a peaceful exploration of the Citadel. Like you mentioned, we come back down and then we'll take the train. But this time we'll go through the Sacred Valley all the way back to Poroy, which is the train station that services Cusco. We'll be picked up at Poroy and driven 25 minutes into Cusco proper. So this is a bit of a bigger bite. But what I try to do is arrange this such that we can get back in time, so we can choose a dinner in town. And I think we'll talk about reservations as the trip gets closer when we have numbers, because having those things prearranged just relieves some of that burden.
Perfect.
You'll meet your bags there. There's your room, Casa Andina, a good local brand. And that's kind of very centrally located, so it'll permit for lots of independent exploration. I'll stop there just in case you wanted to add anything or ask anything, and then I'll carry on into Cusco.
No, that I don't have a lot. I would like to. I know if you scroll down in this thing, we will do that after, I guess. But I would love for people to see like the
Ah,
image.
very good point. Yeah. I'll do that after, like, since I should have before, you're right, but I'll do it
Yeah,
after
no,
so
that's
we
okay.
can see what we're talking about. Um, so yeah, Cusco, I mentioned two capitals previously. Cusco is a super underrated city in kind of our imagination of Peru. Cusco was the Inca capital. The Inca Empire covered Peru, Ecuador, northern Chile, parts of northwestern Argentina, Bolivia, a significant portion of land. So in Europe and in around the Mediterranean, we'd say all roads lead to Rome. Well, in the Inca period, like all roads led to Cusco. There was no more prosperous city on the continent. And so I think it's something that's very worth seeing, very worth understanding. And to the extent, like I said, that you can understand it in advance, more power to you. So there's that history. And then quite literally, built on top of some of that Inca history is some of the Spanish heritage as well. They took a lot of buildings and kind of built on them. So it makes for an interesting sort of juxtaposition. Now, Lima is renowned for its cuisine, its coastal cuisine, Nikkei cuisine, which is sort of Japanese Peruvian, Chifa, Chaufa, which is like Chinese, Peruvian. And of course, once we're in the Sacred Valley in Cusco, we're talking about Andean cuisine. Very different. The potatoes, the superstar. But they also have more diverse dishes, we'll call them, like cuy, which is guinea pig, to each his or her own, right? But we'll have a culinary experience to explore that part of their culture. Don't worry, we're not going to get too exploratory in this, but this is a really nice experience to be hands-on and explore everything that is kind of central Peruvian cuisine, culminating in a meal. And then, just for the calorie sake, we'll do like a walking tour so we can explore the actual city center of Cusco itself. I think I gotta find some pizza for you. I know you're a big aficionado
Yeah,
of
that's right.
pizza, so
That's
we'll have to build that in somewhere. But we'll have a little walking tour after the culinary experience, and that should give us kind of a multi-dimensional view of Cusco, keeping things light after having had a big transit day here, but engaging with kind of some historical content, but also some interactive hands-on content. Um, and then this could look like a number of things. This could be sometimes flights leave Lima late at night, in which case we could take advantage of this day, or we could give you a leisure day to explore, or whatever the case may be. Some flights are Delta flights, for example, that leave at 9 a.m., 12 p.m. We can do a 12 p.m. departure. You get on like a 7:30 from Cusco, connect in Lima. So there's different ways of approaching this. I'm not a huge fan of like a domestic flight followed by the international flight, but because the Cusco Lima flight logistics are pretty simple and straightforward, I'm comfortable proposing it. And LATAM, like I mentioned, which will be offering this flight with Delta, you can get it all on one ticket. That
right.
saves you the whole baggage recollection fiasco in some cases. So, anyways, with the mechanics of this may not look the same for every traveler, like on the front end, and we can kind of chat through that as we have kind of concrete
Yeah,
plans.
it certainly won't because people, especially going home, will be going to different
Exactly.
locations. Yeah.
So, like you mentioned, let's take a look at the map. Let's zoom way out to start. There we go. Peru, Pacific coast. And then we're focusing on, so we have all this is all Amazonian. This is kind of desert, sand dune, coast kind of areas. This is historic. A lot of the earliest cities and the conquistadors, etc., landed up here. And there are some interesting archaeological pieces. And then here's Lake Titicaca on the border of Bolivia and Peru. Our itinerary focuses on the two great cities and some of the sort of archaeological sites in central Peru. Lima on the coast, very much at sea level, by the way. And then we head into Cusco, and then we can see maybe we'll have a little bit of clarity on the kind of sequence here. So our hotel is somewhere here around Urubamba, Cusco City, and then Machu Picchu Pueblo or Aguas Calientes. You might be able to make out Aguas Calientes right here. Machu Picchu just adjacent to it. So we'll head into Cusco immediately to the Sacred Valley. We'll explore this region, right? And so to give you some context on the Sacred Valley, I don't know if it's going to come up right away. Maras, for example, that I mentioned with the salt ponds is here. Moray is adjacent to that. Chinchero, where we have the market, is right here. Right. Then we drive to Ollantaytambo, and from there, that's where we take the train. All right, so we're going to drive here, take the train up to Machu Picchu, and then that line back to Cusco. Cusco is a much larger city, um, the historic center. I'm not sure why the number is actually populating up here. The stay will be in the historic center, and then okay, sorry about that, and then we'll head back thereafter to Lima. If
Yeah.
it's of interest, I could mention that an easy pre to this would be to add on a stay in and around Puerto Maldonado. If someone's interested in adding the Amazon onto this trip, very much to tie in with our Galapagos wildlife theme. So for our animal lovers, we could weave in an Amazon trip. We can fly Lima direct to Puerto Maldonado and explore everything that is the Tambopata Reserve, which is part of the Amazon. And then this actually flies direct to Cusco. So you could do that an additional 3 days or 4 days, and it creates a nice, neat little triangle here. Obviously, we'd have to adjust, but I just mentioned that because it's an
Yeah.
easy combination to make.
Okay, very good.
Okay. I think I've covered most of what I wanted to cover. Weather-wise, like I mentioned, probably the warmest destination here will be Lima. I'm a Canadian, so I'm gonna have to do the Fahrenheit for you.
That's okay.
Maybe,
Can you scroll down so people can see some of the other
sure,
imagery?
yeah, of course.
Yeah,
Um,
there's
so
so
here's our Sumo hotel from the outside. This
yeah,
almost looks like a conceptual image.
yeah,
Here's some images of Lima proper, so San Francisco Monastery. Like I mentioned, you could see a lot of the vestiges of the Spanish and their presence. And in this itinerary that Ryan will share in some form or another, you'll get all the kind of granularity around what the touring is, and so what the city tour incorporates, what neighborhoods we're going to visit, some color around that, etc. So then we have our change of scenery. This was our second hotel, the Sonesta here. And I was saying they have really nice grounds, and you can kind of get a sense for what that might feel like here from this photo. Um, Textiles, we were talking about Oana Cancha, and this is kind of the Sacred Valley, very Andean, that whole spine of Peru. I mean, South America in general, down through Argentina, up through Patagonia, all the way, even ending in as high as Colombia, and beyond. You have this kind of mountain presence of the Andes, and it's part and parcel of a South American experience. So it's nice that we're going to have some nature time to highlight, along with the River Urubamba and all that is the Sacred Valley. Once again, we have the hotel here. Here's Maras, which are the salt ponds that I mentioned. They have very interesting kind of terracing techniques as far as agriculture goes, and we'll learn a little bit more about that on site. I'm going to do a quick Google search if you don't mind. I'll show you what Moray looks like. Not that. Moray is this sort of amphitheatrical
oh yeah,
setting. It's very photogenic. It's very beautiful, and so it's for the photographers in the group. And now that we all have good quality phones, we can all be photographers. That's an important note, by the way. Camera equipment at Machu Picchu. Just be careful about that. I'm gonna have a conversation in depth about what's permitted as far as camera equipment. They're a little bit stringent on that. Okay. Um, Here's our Vista Dome train. Machu Picchu, of course. A lovely day at Machu Picchu, and here's the Casa del Sol Hotel. This is just where we're having our explorations in Machu Picchu, a place to wind down, enjoy the town. The town's not a bad little town. It's not a highlight of the trip, but you can mosey about. It's a very tourism driven town naturally, but it's pleasant and charming in its own way. Vista Dome train, I'll give you a sense of what that might look like inside Vista Dome train, Peru. So yeah,
oh yeah,
that looks
beautiful.
like this, or I don't know if you can see. They have some demonstrations on board. Uh, Here, let's try this one. I know. Here, it looks like this in general. So it's better than your Amtrak, that's for sure.
Yeah,
Um, and then if we head down here, we have our second day at Machu Picchu. Then we head back. The hotel's in this kind of typical central courtyard, quasi-convent style building, fountain in the middle, almost like Moroccan in a way. And here's kind of some imagery of Cusco. some of the historic buildings. Very typical, the roofs on an angle here, roofs. Culinary experience. Okay, here's a snapshot of Peruvian cuisine. I guess this is probably cuisine that you likely find more so on the coast. But anyhow, like I said, it'll be more central Peruvian in its nature. And then, of course, we have a variety of other avenues we can explore for the more active, for the astronomers, for the nocturnal ones among us. There's lots of great things to offer. Yeah, and some imagery around the hotels also. I have some additional photos here. Like I said, Suma, very nice on the rooftop. Um, do we have any more photos here? Yeah, okay. This almost looks like a lobby area, rooftop, a nice pool looking out over the Pacific. Um,
Yeah, those are
Restaurant area, rooms. Like I said, very clean cut, very comfortable. A hotel I really like. You can see the Sonesta, lovely grounds. Some of the area you can see it's a little bit more of a traditional feel, though. Like the room category that I showed you has been somewhat refurbished since, so you get it doesn't at the higher end. Some of those room categories, this one are pretty nice. And like I said, the setting itself is quite idyllic and bucolic, if I can use such a word. Casa del Sol, I think we had the same picture that I had shown you previously of the room itself. We have that here. And then lastly, we have the Casa Andina. Um, I guess it's a massage. This is not the room category we're looking at, just kind of standard room categories built into typical older Cusqueño buildings. So not even in the same room category, not all rooms will be identical, just because of the particularities of the building itself. I promised you some reading recommendations, so I'll give you two. How about that? Let's pluck them off the shelf here if we can find them. Uh,
here. Let me why don't you stop sharing your screen if you're gonna
sure.
show a book, just to make sure that it's on the.
Of course. Let me grab one over here. So this is one of my favorites. This is A History of the Conquest of Peru, written by William H. Prescott,
Right.
Boston based. He was actually like a celebrity of his time, bizarrely. Historians, I guess, could be celebrities back then. He wrote this in the 1850s. Surprisingly, I think people would expect it to be kind of colored by a certain vision. But he did the first 4 or 5 chapters are very in depth about Inca culture, how everything worked, their social infrastructures, their mail system, their government structures, and everything. And then it tells a story that's worthy of a Netflix series, of the conquistadors, et cetera, and how that whole interaction took place. So it was written way back when. Old history books I find read like novels a lot. They permit themselves some creative license rather than being so tied to like the citations. So it's a real fun read, and one that can be done decently quickly. And then the other one that comes to mind right offhand could be this one, a little bit more modern. This one's called Turn Right at Machu Picchu. It was written by a British, lovely graphics here on the front. It was written by a British journalist who would describe himself as not outdoorsy, and his mission was to sort of hike to a number of, not just Machu Picchu, but a number of the primary archaeological sites in Peru. I mean, the story itself is good. There's a couple of chuckles in there and everything, but what's interesting is kind of the color that it lends to the background to a lot of like why they built things certain ways, what certain mountain peaks represented in to the Inca, etc., and some of the history around what Machu Picchu might have been and kind of its discovering or uncovering or what have you. So, two quick thoughts to get people in the right state of mind.
Yeah. And I know we didn't talk about the pricing as we went through
Sure.
the thing, but I will let people know, and this is kind of subject to change because I don't
Yeah.
know when people are going to add this on or not, so we can't keep it solid because hotels might book
Yeah.
up, things like that. But it's around $4,000 a person to add this on, or to book separately. So I think at the price point is actually really good for this type of trip. If you're not familiar with Kensington, which is who Sean works for, it is an exceptional tour company. They are who I use most of the time whenever somebody says to me, I want to go to this certain place, and they have a certain travel style where they want to have things sort of taken care of for them, and they want to have that really the private guides and things like that. That I always go to Kensington because they have a great reputation and They just do it correctly and they do it well. And everybody that goes with a Kensington tour comes back is telling me, it's one of the best trips they've ever taken. So for those reasons, that's why I choose to work with people like Sean. Sean and I have worked together before. Sean planned a trip for me in Buenos Aires. I was just there for a few days, and I said to myself, Sean, I don't even know what to do. Can you just take care of it? I like pizza, and so so
That's where the pizza
here's the
comment
whole
came
thing.
from. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had a great time, and I know Sean can
Yeah.
really help put together things in this region. So
Well, the premise is this is sort of like your group, you know kind of what your vision is for the trip, and then my job is to offer my 2 cents and kind of build that for you. And then if I do my job well, everything on the ground is seamless. So from the time you show up to the time you leave, everything's in place, taken care of, and there's a local team to help guide you, local guides and personnel to help guide you through what that process is going to look like. Um, I guess also I would say that from an inclusion standpoint, do you want me to touch on that or no?
yeah, please.
Yeah. So the only things that are not included in all of our itineraries, breakfast is included daily. It's an important meal. We want to get you started on the right foot. Some lunches and dinners will be included. So, for example, on day two, Larco Museum and City Tour, lunch was included. At Machu Picchu, first day up, lunch was included. Chinchero Market and Moray, lunch was included. Culinary tour, lunch was included. But not all lunches and dinners will be included. That leaves us a little bit of latitude for you to get out and explore on your own, for one, though we can make some reservations in place. And also, not you don't always want an included meal because it's sort of a lot of times you'll have to stay on a certain menu or you'll have to eat at a certain place that we've decided. So we want to keep a little bit of spirit of adventure in it. And the last is tips. All our guides are paid. We take good care of them, but if ever, you feel like the service was above and beyond. But other than that, the pricing is all inclusive. That air piece, like I said, the domestic air, usually I would include it up front, but just given the context of things, that's something
Yeah,
we'll address later on. Yeah.
yeah. Well, Sean, thank you so much for going
It's
through
been a
everything.
pleasure.
I hope this gives people a really good understanding of the trip. And like I said, if you're going with me to the Galapagos, it's an easy add-on for you. But if you're just interested in this is a whole vacation by itself. I think it's 8 days, right, that we did.
8 days, yeah, 8 days.
So it's a whole vacation by itself. And I think the price point is really, really, really good for this style of trip. But it pairs well with the Galapagos if you're going with me on that too. So, Sean, any other last minute things you think of?
I don't think so. I don't think so. Entry requirements to Peru, maybe that's worth touching on. There are none.
Sure. Yeah.
And if even from the standpoint of discuss with your health professional, right? Questions around altitude, yellow fever doesn't factor into this trip unless, of course, you want to explore an Amazon extension. But there are no requirements as such. Of course, we always advise that folks have medical insurance when they travel. I'm sure Ryan, like me, have seen ample situations where either we were super relieved or super worried that,
Yeah.
that travelers didn't have that. And then Ecuador to Peru, it's also worth mentioning that there's no requirements from one country to the next as far as vaccinations or anything like that. No visa requirements typically for U.S. travelers. So Peru is quite an easy from a documentation administrative standpoint. It's an easy country to work with,
Yeah.
and I do think it's a very popular destination, and for good reason because it offers nature, outdoor activity, archaeology, history, cuisine, you name it, it can be found in Peru. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll put my it's I don't have it available, but in post I'll put my email and my phone number on the screen kind of now as we're talking in case you need that in order to get in touch with me to book the trip. But Sean, thanks so much. I think this was great, and I hope to see a bunch of you on in Peru.
excellent. All right. Happy travels, guys.
Thanks.
Okay. Take care.